Well, hello everyone. Here's Shoei right here of talking about the distiller, for e-signature right here, and we all know that how e-signature works, don't we? That knowing about that when we do talk about type tools and everything, but still that when we do explore the other opportunities whenever it comes to e-signing a document, right? And so it sure seems that way that each time we do speak about the distiller though, and maybe distiller onto Illustrator. That what we're pretty much doing is that we are like whenever it talks about signature, right? So each time we do speak about signatures, a lot of times, we're also talking about the voice, right? The voice about for what was discussed, during the meetings, and then also if it's maybe going to be about information and technologies, and then maybe agreement, and then plus based on the fact about that, any comments and suggestions, right? So a lot of times when we think about a signature, though. That we're gonna say is to where signature. So that's pretty. It's not just the spelling of your name, of course, but that's also another way of how you come out to an agreement with something. Just to be able to discuss something and all that. But a lot, what I have been seeing here of knowing about with distiller, because whenever you do distill a document using e-signature, though, it's like you're probably thinking is toward okay, yeah, well, you would really use distiller mainly for that if you're going to be producing PDF file copies, right? So a lot of times it's like, yeah, well, PDF file copies, like maybe if it's a PostScript documents or something like that. But anything about we call PDF converting to PDF file type of documents, and so when we do think about that, talking about PDF file documents right here, right, and so it sure seems that way that when we do speak about distiller, that that's another way of how you want to call, for talk about for copy, right? And so I'll go ahead and put right here, I have right here of, with copy right here, but then I can go ahead and place another text or text right here and say that copy right here. So it sure seems that way that each time we we hear about talk about for copy, and you think is to where okay, yeah, with copy that and then go ahead and put layout here, and then but it sure seems that way that when we do see, I'll go ahead and create like a layout right here to make this bigger, but so it sure seems that way that each time we do hear about distiller, is that another way of how you want to cause is toward okay, yeah, that what you really are doing also is any documents that you're going to be working with, right? And it's like, yeah, well, any documents really, but let's just say that yeah, and if you were to produce a duplicate, if you were to produce a duplicate copy of that same document, and want to know that okay, yeah, produce a duplicate, and then also whenever it comes to yeah, if you want to change the color or something like that, you'll change the outline, and so that's why it sure seems that way that each time I do think about the distiller, though, that it's like, yeah, well, really, that a lot of professionals would probably say too that this tool right here, that the program of distiller, and even InDesign and InCopy, to where you actually had the tools and the right to the right to commands and all that just to be able to produce copies, right? If you're building a project, so it's like a lot of times that you think is okay, yeah, that what's the main part of the reason to why you would think about distiller in a lot of ways is to where whenever you're talking about a project, whenever you are talking about any documents and anything that you're trying to publish, and maybe anything that you're creating a project is, and so that's why I'm like, yeah, anything that you're trying to edit, right? And so it sure seems that way that each time we do speak about yeah the distiller, and then when we do speak about ink copy, that just think about that is to where that you now have that ability to where you can produce copies, and also you can actually share your like yeah, so it's like a so yeah, I can also put right here or talk about the sharing type. And so if you want to look at the distiller, like, oh yeah, the sharing type right here. So like anybody might even say that whenever you're going to be thinking about distiller a lot of times, that do we want to look at that as another way of how you want to share your information, to where if you're going to be communicating with a client or somebody like that, and like say that yeah, well, that this right here was not in the original document here. So if you're trying to share anything with a client, that you'll tell them that, okay, yeah, this information right here was not originally recorded from the previous document. So could you please go ahead and explain how you were able to come up with that source of information right there? And maybe that's a little reason why that a lot of clients would say is toward it. Yeah, well, really, that so if you're going to be adding anything right here to that sentence right here, and say that you're the email address along with the proper codes, and the data modified. So a lot of times yeah, the date modified, or yeah, the date modified, and the copies produced. Yeah, I don't really know if copies produced. But anyway, so it sure seems that way that each time we do speak about that PDF file documents, right? And you're thinking is toward, okay, yeah, futures board, talk about future board means that the newest technology is soon to become available to the businesses who discover someone who is best fit for the job. So it sure seems that way that when we do speak about distiller a lot of times, even on Illustrator or InDesign, that are we necessarily thinking about is to where that information right here, this information right here, this media right here, this right here was supposed to be like any sort of business card or a flyer or something like that, or using higher pixels, or maybe if it is related to a CMYK, that this project right here that we're building, that so if you were to actually be taking something like this and thinking as to, okay, yeah, well, if you want to go back and make any changes or some sort, and then would you be able to use that same that same idea? But then of course you'll give the file a different name, and maybe if but still it so I know, like with distiller, that the distiller, if you're trying to use a distiller file, and let's just say that if you're trying to open up, if you try and go back and make any changes, though, that there's ways of how you'll be able to tell as to where, okay, yeah, well, if you were not the original publisher, or that if there was a PDF file created. So a lot of times I noticed that based on the originals, the original, to where that whenever if you're going to be distilling a file, that you're able to tell that the original document, and with this original document, that whenever you do open it up in Distiller, that you would see these options here. But still, talk about right here of the signatures right here, but is the main reason why I want to do this activity right here, just because of the fact that we all should know that signing your name, even by remote, is the same thing as a handshake, and that this would mean that someone, that it could be anyone, you can read this and it was approved. So it's like when we do see our signatures right here, and we might even think as to where that, could you possibly write on here that's me or something like that, and like in all capital letters, including a apostrophe or something like that. That's me. That's me right there, including an exclamation point. So, do you think on average that, like anybody might say, is that, yeah, you would go ahead and maybe would you say something like that on a document? That's me right there, and the way I stretch this out right here, and want to know that, okay, yeah, well, like with Distiller though, that how do you know really that, about how your name is being dispatched and all that? But still, that each time we do speak about electronic signature, though, you want to know too that, yeah, well, really, whenever you're taking care of a bill, whenever you're signing your name on a bill or anything like that, and you want to know too that are you really able to see a lot of this stuff right here toward it, for how your name is being used and of course how your information is being used, right? But a lot of times you want to know too that with Distiller though that you can actually, do you really have more control over a fact about like, yeah, whenever you do create a PDF file, that means that a lot of that media based on that document that was on that project that was created, right? And so if you were to open that up, that same project that you created it using Photoshop or even in InDesign, if you were to create a PDF file for that, and for sure that if you were to save that same project as for a PostScript document, and then you'll be able to see that on there to where the root location for where the file was located was saved on. But still, that well, what I'm showing you here, everybody, is an example right here of a document that you would e-sign. And what I mean by e-sign is that you are actually able to sign your name on an actual document, such as a contract, by using the right software just to be able to do that. And of course by remote control. So it sure seems that way that when we do think about any sort of contract agreement and all that, and want to know that yeah, how many of us have really thought about that to where that whenever you do look at a document that you would not even think that your signature would really make a real big difference whenever it comes to understanding about e-signing. And let's just say that if you are using the same tool and this same technique, just to be able to get yeah, for a promotion or maybe to order do shopping online or something like that, or maybe get approved. And so like everybody else might say that, yeah, well, really that well, whenever you do get approved, for sure that they say that yeah, well, really that yeah, if you're trying to produce copies, or maybe if you're waiting for that approval to come in or something like that. But it sure seems that way that when we do speak about yeah, electronic signatures and everything. And so you're like want to know too that with most of the time with signatures though that you want to look at this like a stamp, like whenever you do stamp the name, and you'll usually that if you just make it, but still that like people might say that yeah, you can actually hop around like yeah, so it's like you produce copies, right? But like with the distiller though that you actually are able to tell that knowing that whenever you do save a document, but still, whenever you do, yeah, most of the time with Distiller though that you would need to for sure that well, what you would need to do that those files would be is toward yeah, PostScript files or the other file type that's supported, but still that but the way I think about though that when we do comes when it comes to doing e-signing though is knowing about that about how many copies that were produced, and knowing about that yeah, the tools that are used just to be able to produce copies using Distiller. But anyway, thanks for watching everyone, and have a great day.